All right, so All Dogs Go to Heaven starts out with like the main character who is um, voiced by the villain of a teleporting fat guy, and he is a con like dog. Like he's very shady and like he's with his gang and somehow he like they're like, oh, we're gonna rob a sausage truck or whatever dogs do, and then like he like messes it up and is like, oh no. But like, before this, like he's like looks at like through like a window and it's like a dog being left. It's like, oh, I'm a street dog, I can't have it. And then like it's like his gang starts to be all like, hey, you messed up our sausage thing, now prepare to die. And it's like, no, I can't die. They're like, oh, we're going to bite your neck or something. And they're like, oh no. And there's a whole chase scene. And then like the dog, the teleporting fat guy villain, like his name's Charlie, and he falls into the manhole and he dies. So when he's dead, he is in heaven and meets up with this like prissy like big titty goth GF like Angel, being like, oh, you're a sinner, and be like, oh, you go to hell. And he's like, no, can I have one more chance? And he's like, oh, you could be the guardian angel of this little girl. And this little girl, like, she's looks like the pretzel, like Utz pretzel logo, and like she lives in an orphanage, and like there's the mean lady who always wears a bathrobe, and she's like, oh, you gotta, oh, I don't love you, you're a worthless orphan. And like she's all sad, so like he goes down to earth, like he drops down and like in Fortnite, except it's like it has like a because the 90s. And then then like he meets the girl and there's like a sweet scene, and then she could talk to animals, and she introduced her to friends. Like there's like Cooper um Trolls movie, and then there's Girl, and then Girl is like all like sexy, and because it's an animated movie, they gotta have their sexy animals. And even though like Charlie, he's the sexy one, and like they become like friends, like, and like they go to the park and they go on those like, it takes place in New York, and they go on those like duck boat things, and like there's like a little bit of slapstick stuck in there, and like at the end they're eating hot dogs because dogs. And um that happens for like a couple of days, and like he's like, oh yeah, I really like this girl. And then like this little rat thing, like a chihuahua, comes to him and is like, hey, the gang wants you back, we heard you're alive. And it's like, oh, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. And like there's like insinuatings, like there's this con man dog that's just like Charlie before he died, and like the dog friends are like, oh, that dog, it's so disgusting, I'm glad you're not like that, Charlie. And then Charlie's like, right. And so like he goes to like the dog gang's hideout, which is like a strip club and gambling, because like it's a early 90s animated film, so like they gotta have a strip club and gambling. And it's like, and he's like, hey, like let's make a deal, let's gamble this one time, and then like you could help me deal my big job. And turns out the big job is the dogs are going to going to like organize stuff in order to have the mean orphanage running lady um, be able to demolish the orphanage, make it into a parking lot, and sell all the orphans to evil One Direction. So you don't want to be sold by emo one evil, emo and evil, because maybe they're not emo because emo's good in the 90s. And so it's like, oh no. And he's like, oh, I'm going back to my ways. And like the little girl, like they promise, like, oh, you gotta kiss me before bed every day. And he doesn't do it because he gets back to like the gambling ring and like does some gambling, and they're like, hey, by the way, we're gonna sell that little girl to evil One Direction. And he's like, I don't care about her, but like he feels guilty inside. And then like he has a dream about like him in hell, and it's like terrifying. There's like lava and little like cherubs, but they're devils, like devil cherubs. And like he's like, oh, this is so sad. And then like the dogs, the dogs, they're like scheming, but the little girl finds out, and they're like, oh no. And it's like and he gets like maybe like the chihuahua Cooper from Trolls, and the girl like Charlie. And they're like, we gotta save the girl. So like they like toss her in the sewer, but she survives. And all of a sudden there's an alligator that comes out, and he's from New Orleans and is a drag queen, and um, sings about eating Charlie for some reason, while like the girl in the background is just drowning. And then they're like, oh no, she drowned. Like, how are we gonna bring her back to life? And it's like Charlie is like, oh, I failed you, little girl. And then like the sexy uh, like angel from heaven like comes down. No, like Charlie like cries on her, and like he also kills the gang member. And like then the angel lady comes down and is like, oh, you killed a gang member, and you cried about her and apologized to her, like you deserve your second chance. And then like and then like she is like, oh, but I'm still being sold to evil One Direction. And then all of a sudden Charlie does a flip, and no, Charlie does something better. He like just pulls his like mouth, like he bites like the leg of a random man. And he's and like this like Wonder Bread man, and like he's like with his wife, and he's like, oh, that's a dog, and that's a girl, let's adopt you. And it's like, yay. Then they live in like this log cabin, like we're all like safe together, and we're friends. And then it it's a to be continued, because I think the sequel is about like the gang leader dog coming back from hell. And um and like something about Charlie's father, I think. Yeah, it's a decent movie. Like I think like it's paved the way for movies like Zootopia and the Bee Movie. I'll give it a 9 out of a 10.